Call to order the Board of Adjustments meeting for Thursday, September 21st, 2023. It is 1 o'clock. Before we get started, we have a new member to swear in, Maggie Bennington.
Welcome, Maggie.
Thank you.
I'm going to just ask you to state your name after I say aye, and I'll read the rest. And you
Okay.
just say I do, okay?
Okay.
So I,
Maggie Bennington.
having been duly appointed as a board member of the Wilmington Board of Adjustment, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of the state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability. I will enforce, execute, and obey the laws of ordinances of the city of Wilmington and faithfully discharge the duties of the office to which I have been appointed.
I do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome.
All right, thank you. Next time,
I'll go
since
ahead
you're
and
up, you
swear
want...
everybody in,
Yeah.
so if you are going to speak, staff, applicants, members of the public, if you'll stand up and raise your right hand. All right. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next item is going to be the approval of the minutes from the August 17th, 2023 meeting. If there aren't any changes, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
In a second, please.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And before we go forward, I'm going to go ahead and read for the Board of Adjustments. Hearings before the Board of Adjustments are quasi-judicial in nature. Decisions of the board are based on the record of these proceedings. To grant a variance requires a concurrent vote of 4/5 of the members of the board. To reserve or modify the determination of an administrative official requires a simple majority. Evidence submitted to the board for review becomes part of the record. Appeals of the board's decision are to the Superior Court and based on the record. Appeals must be filed within 30 days of the date of filing of the board's order in the Planning Division. Hearing before the board is conducted in accordance with the rules of procedure. Those who want to testify in a case are sworn as witness. The chairperson will recognize those who want to testify or their attorneys for presentation of evidence during the hearing. To ensure that all testimony is properly recorded, when you come forward, please state your address, your name, and speak clearly. All right. Before we move on to item 1, there was understanding that an item may be continued. That's the last item. In case there's anyone here for item 4, do you want us to go ahead and continue that?
Yes, sir. That's item 4. It was advertised as 305 Brenda Drive, but the applicant, in fact, intended for that to be an appeal to a property at 302 Inglewood Drive, and so we will need to re-advertise that hearing.
All right. That being the case, does anyone have any questions on that? If we can, we'll go ahead and continue that item to the October
19th.
Thank you. Well, if there would be a motion to continue that item to October 19th meeting?
Make a motion to continue item 4, 302 Inglewood Drive to the October 19 meeting.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. That will be continued. We'll move on to item number 1. Item number 1 involves 3810 Shipyard Boulevard. It's a variance to the sign regulations preventing electronic changeable copy in the residential district. You're doing all of them today, so we'll be...
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. This is 3810 Shipyard Boulevard. This property is zoned R15 residential, and it's currently developed with a religious institution known as the Pine Valley Church of God, and parking associated with that use. There's currently a freestanding sign along Shipyard Boulevard between the 2 drive aisles. It's difficult to see, but it's shown in the picture below on the screen. Pursuant to City Code Chapter 18, Land Development Code 18388, the table of signs, which would govern signs allowed in this area, they're prohibited from having electronic changeable copy signs in residential districts. They submitted an application for a variance to allow changeable copy for this use. to replace their existing sign with one that is digital. And this matter was set for hearing before you today. I believe that the applicant is present to answer any questions you may have of the applicant, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have of city staff.
All right, does anyone have any questions at this time? Yes, sir.
It's a religious assembly in an R15 district?
Yes, sir, it is a permitted use, but yes.
Okay.
Else? All right, thank you very
I'd like
much.
to enter the case summary and all attachments into the record.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll acknowledge the agent for the applicant, Dalton Kelly. Would you like to speak before the board today regarding this?
Not unless you have any questions for us.
Anyone have questions for the applicant? All right. Okay, and we can come back. If you decide you want to say anything, you can always come back through. All right, we will, anything, staff, continue on? I'm going to go ahead and open the evidentiary. All right, we'll go ahead and open the evidentiary hearing related to this matter. I would ask that anyone that speaks provides competent material, substance to the, and relative to the matter. Is there anyone that would like to come forward to speak regarding this matter? All right, while we're still in the, from the applicant, anything else? I just want to give you the chance to get anything you have on the record.
This is our first time doing
Yeah,
this.
no worries, yes.
Well, there's two other churches on the street. The one right beside us, they have a freestanding, but a block away, the Baptist church, they have the electrical sign. If we have to stay within the perimeters that they have, that we already have, we're willing to do that. However you decide what size we need to do, we just want to be able to, if we have multiple events, be able to change it without having to change the sign every other week.
All right, and I should have asked you before this. Just state your name
Oh,
and
I'm
address for
sorry.
the record. It was my fault.
I'm Dalton Kelly,
Okay, thank you. And your address?
3810 Shipyard Boulevard.
All right, thank you. But, all right, thank you. Since you're the agent, I'll see if anyone has questions.
Okay.
Anybody have questions of the applicant? Okay, all right. I appreciate you telling us.
Thank you.
Being that there's no others, anything for the city during the evidentiary?
I'm not sure what the religious institutions that were referenced include, but I will note, looking at the zoning map, there's residential to the south of this property, but it's bound on all other three sides by office and institutional zoning, which would allow for electronic changeable copy signs. I believe that the applicant would have the option of rezoning the property just to get a different type of sign. I believe that has been the process that other applicants have used to allow for changeable copy when presented with similar situations.
And the changeable sign that's down the street closer to Hoggard on that church, that is in an office institutional district, isn't that correct?
I'd have to have the address to confirm that. Or the name of the church, and I can look it up.
I think it's the Pine Valley Baptist Church.
Yep.
I can take a look
They
at
have a changeable sign. The church on the other side, the Pine Valley Methodist Church, does not have a changeable sign.
I will note that our sign code changed December 1st, 2021, and it did place more restrictions on signage in, residential areas and commercial areas as well, to try to limit the electronic changeable copies in lower intensity areas and in residential districts where we do allow some commercial uses. But I'll be happy to, if you wanted to take a break and let me look at the properties, the other churches, I'll be happy to do that, but I'm not familiar offhand with their zoning.
All right, and I think I saw Ms. Kelly. We'll have you come up. Is any other questions for Catherine right now?
Just one quick question. We're not looking at the size of the sign, it's really just the electronic piece of it, right?
Correct, that's the change. I'll note also with more than 100 feet of frontage along Shipyard Boulevard, if they were zoned office and institutional, they'd be allowed to have up to a 50 square foot sign with changeable copy,
Okay.
where the current restriction is no more than 35 square feet.
And you said that's been the avenue pursued by others in the zoning district? You want to change
I
the
believe
property
that's the
signs?
case.
Okay.
The Assistant Planning Director, I believe, is looking at that right now.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Kelly, do you want to come up?
Yes, the two properties she was talking about that's behind us, we own those.
Ms. Kelly, so the ones you're saying, the properties that they referenced,
The one that's on Stonewall Jackson,
Okay.
110 Stonewall, that's ours, and the one that is, no, that's 113. The 110 Pine Valley, that one's also ours.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Appreciate that. You want to give a second for staff to look up to address your question, Patrick?
Okay.
You're good? Anyone have any, before I close the evidentiary, anyone have any other questions during the public? All right, I'll go ahead and close.
I will note, the other church along Shipyard, 3940 Shipyard Boulevard, that was referenced earlier, it is zoned office and institutional and would be allowed electronic changeable copy.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just ask one more time if anyone has any during the public side. All right, I'll go ahead and close the evidentiary hearing. Anything from the city as far as rebuttal or additional information?
I'm just available for questions if
Okay.
you have them.
All right. Anything from the applicant at this time? Okay. All right, thank you. We'll go into deliberations. People have questions, thoughts?
I mean, I don't like changing this, what's all the work that's been put into that, but I know if we deny it, they're just going to rezone, so it's kind of like,
It's also not your
I
traditional.
agree, but I think rezoning is the avenue because I struggle with the four findings of fact. Unnecessary hardship, I struggle with a little bit. Hardship results and conditions are peculiar, I struggle with a little bit. 3 and 4, the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant that certainly meet that requirement. And is it consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent? Most likely so, but I do struggle with the first two findings of fact, with the avenue of rezoning as an option.
Anybody else, thoughts?
I mean, that was my first question about R15 and assembly use. And then if you have the parcels beside it that are O&I that have signs, seems more uniform to have everything consistent.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think we're bound by, I don't think we have the ability to change something like this. It would be random. Even though you might think it should be, but I think the rezoning is a way, and it's a hard thing to tell someone that's right beside it, but I think our restrictions that are put upon us, I would have trouble voting for it. But
Well, I think we are bound by the four findings of fact, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, the reality is we're bound by the four findings of fact.
any other discussion or emotion?
Not on my end.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll make a motion to deny the variance based on the four findings of fact. There is no hardship. There's nothing peculiar. Therefore, we make a motion to deny the variance.
All right, there's a motion to deny. Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to that? Unfortunately, it has failed. I would ask that you contact the city to talk further, maybe on the rezoning side, and we appreciate you being here today. Thank you. We will move on to item number 2. Item number 2 involves 5601 Marsh Bay Drive. It is asking for a waiver to the floodplain standards to allow the installation of an elevator shaft below the regulatory flood elevation for residents in the R20 Residential Legacy District at this time. Hello.
Hello again, thank you. Yes, this is a request for a variance to the City of Wilmington's floodplain standards. I'm sorry, I should have said waiver, because this is not a variance that would require the standard for findings of fact set forth in general statute. It's a different set of standards, but I've got a slide for that for you to consider in a moment. This property is approximately 25,805 square feet. It contains a dwelling that's 3,229 square feet according to New Hanover County tax records. That house is valued at $386,100. Therefore, this is not considered a substantial improvement by the National Flood Insurance Program. Pursuant to City Code Section 18270, elevator shafts and enclosures that extend below the regulatory flood protection elevation shall be constructed or reinforced with masonry block or reinforced concrete walls to provide increased protection from flood damage. Drainage shall be provided for the elevator pit. The applicant has indicated that it will be difficult for them to comply with that standard with their existing construction. They submitted an application on August 7th for a waiver to these standards to allow them to install an elevator below the regulatory flood elevation without using reinforced concrete walls. And that matter was set for hearing before the Board of Adjustment today, September 21st. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have of city staff.
All right.
And this is just the flood map showing that the entire property is within the special flood hazard area. A site plan showing the setbacks of the existing house and the location of the elevator shaft. And then the findings of fact that need to be met for a floodplain waiver. I won't go through all of those, but they will be on the screen if you need to refer back to them.
Does anyone have any questions of Catherine at this time? All right, thank you.
I'd like to submit the case summary and all of the attachments into the record.
All right,
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. I show the applicant is Ryan Nicholson and the owner, Joy Morgan. Is anyone from the applicant like to come, you want to come forward?
Good afternoon.
If you could just state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Ryan Nicholson. My address is 323 Shore Point Drive. And I'm the general contractor for Miss Morgan and her husband. And yes, their son had a tragic accident and currently has to have the fire department come in to remove him for physical therapy 3 times a week, and he is paralyzed. And what the current, flood zone would make us do would be send these helical piers 20 to 30 feet down into the ground, and then do a footer, which would be attached to it, and the first 4 to 5 feet of the wall to be block. According to my engineer, it's completely safe and fine. There's girders, or there's 6 pilings around the current staircase, which we would remove and put the elevator shaft in. And he's more than confident on supporting girders across those pilings, and that would reinforce and hold up to standards as far as the elevator shaft goes. So I think the biggest thing is just, without it being substantial improvement of the house, to stay within the building codes of when the house was constructed in 1995.
All right, does anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
What's the elevation of the first floor?
19 feet, 19.1 feet.
Anybody else have any questions
That's
from Mr. Nichols?
above floodplain, not.
Anybody at this time? All right, thank you, sir. We'll move on to the opening of the evidentiary hearing. At this time, I'd ask any parties that would like to speak regarding the materials and relevance to the case, please come forward. Seeing that we don't have any, I'll ask if there's anything else from the city. Catherine, anything additional?
Nothing more from the city.
Mr. Nichols, do you have anything during the public side at all? Anybody have any questions they want during the?
I will say that
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll have to, we just need to come up here.
I have contacted 3 companies here in town that install helical piers, and none of them will touch the inside of a structure with a helical pier. So I'm just wondering if it's even possible to do, or if, I don't know if a specialist from somewhere in the country would have to get involved, but as far as I can tell, doing my homework at the beginning, that, you know, we don't have that option currently.
All right, thank you, I appreciate that, that helps. All right, if there's nothing else for the evidentiary, I will go ahead and close the evidentiary hearing. Is there anything else from the city in regards to?
I will note that any damage that's done to the elevator appears that it would be isolated to this one property and would not threaten the city's standing in the National Flood Insurance Program.
Okay. All right, at this time, any questions at this time? I'll go ahead and we'll close the, we already did that, sorry. We'll go on and talk if there's any questions or discussion on how to proceed with this matter.
You know, this is different from standard variance. This is a floodplain variance, and I went and visited the property, and the front steps are, you know, pretty steep, pretty tall, and I think if you read through the 11 findings of fact, I think there's a valid reason to allow this elevator to proceed, and any damage, as Catherine mentioned, or Ms. Thurston mentioned, would be isolated to this home. It would not affect the city's floodplain standing. So I would be in favor of granting this variance.
I agree with that, Patrick.
All right, is there a motion, I believe?
I'd like to make a motion that we grant the variance request for 5601 Marsh Bay Drive based on the 11 findings of fact for a floodplain variance.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes unanimously. We'll move on to item number 3. Item number 3 involves 634 Peacock Lane. It's a request for a variance in the rear setback from 15 feet to 5 feet due to the shape of the lot limiting the buildable footprint of the property. We will, that is the city, Catherine will, again.
634 Peacock Lane is a vacant lot. It's zoned R3. It looks as though on the screen in front of you, more of the land area is shown as being the site than is actually the case. Where that structure is with the label 626 on it should not be included as part of this site. The applicant has proposed to develop the subject property for a single dwelling use. It currently has approximately 23 feet of frontage along the North 7th Street right-of-way, but that portion of North 7th Street cannot be improved due to the topography and the presence of an adjacent rail bed. The property has about 99 feet of frontage along Peacock Lane, which is a private access easement that's 20 feet wide. The applicant has proposed to orient the house towards 7th Street, but to utilize Peacock Lane for access and technical frontage. Land Development Code, Section 1828, sets forth the required setbacks in the R3 district. The front setback is required to be 10 feet. The interior sides are 5 feet, and corner sides are required to be 5 feet as well, and 15 feet for the rear yard setback. So the applicant has requested a variance of 10 feet to the rear yard setback in the R3 to allow the construction of a house that's 5 feet from the rear property line. So I'll just go through some of our site maps. This one shows the actual site area. This is one of the applicant's exhibits showing the requested setbacks. And this is just to help clarify what the request is. You can see North 7th Street to the east on the map in front of you. Peacock Lane is a 20-foot wide private access easement, but only approximately 12 feet of that is paved. So as code currently reads, if we strictly applied the setback requirements, there's about 1,440 square feet of buildable area. The applicant is requesting to orient the house as though it had a frontage along 7th Street, even though there's not enough frontage to really face that direction, but to be more consistent with the typical development pattern in the downtown area, which would allow a building envelope of about 2,028 square feet. The applicant is present to answer any questions that the board may have. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have of city staff.
I have one before we get to, the EMS issues for emergency response for the positioning. Is there any?
Peacock Lane was reviewed by the Technical Review Committee about 10 years ago, if I had to guess. There's an apartment building also located along Peacock Lane that uses that for access. Maybe 10 units, I'm not sure. I'll bet Mr. Trifoli would know how many units are there. But yes, it is currently improved to a standard that would allow for emergency access. Additionally, the 7th Street is improved up to the property, so emergency vehicles would be able to park along 7th Street if there were some sort of an emergency that they needed to address.
All right. Any questions for Catherine at this time? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Trifoli?
Hey there, my name's George Trifoli. I live at 624 Brunswick Street. So my permanent residence is right on the other side of Peacock Lane, and this property is behind my current residence. I own the property, and I did submit the request for the variance. When we first had the option to purchase the property, we did our due diligence and chatted with the city. They indicated that there was front setback of 10, rear 15, side of 5, and the lot, because of the weird shape, tapering, the setbacks really made the buildable area very small. And it was suggested or brought up that if we oriented the house to 7th Street and did improvements, then the setbacks would change. And that long, narrow stretch, instead of having, the 10 and the 15, making the lot this narrow, would have the 5 and a 5, and we'd have more buildable space. So it made sense to purchase the property. And we did that about 2.5 years ago. And we just went back to the city this summer to say, hey, we're ready to draw up some plans and make sure everything's good. I inquired about the improvements that we could do to 7th Street, and I guess everybody realized that we can't do improvements because the road dead ends. It falls into the train ditch right behind us. So we want to move forward with building. We're just asking that the rear setback be changed from 15 to 5, which would be if the house was oriented that way anyhow. And the railroad track, there's no neighbors behind us that would either be inconvenienced or bothered by it. And by actually allowing us to get closer to the rail bed, 5 feet off instead of 15, it's actually better for all of the houses across on Peacock, those last 3 houses, because instead of building right up on the alleyway, we can push the house back another 10 feet and give a little more privacy. And I'm concerned about that too, because my house is right there. And we're trying not to have a house, in our backyard, looking into our backyard. So if we can get it pushed back a little bit further to the railroad tracks and not impose or bother anybody, which is what we originally thought we could do. So I think that is it. Thanks.
All right, does anybody have any questions at this time? All right, thank you, sir. Anything from the city regarding?
Nothing further from the city at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and open the evidentiary hearing. I'm getting ready to open hearing. This is when we'll have the public speak. Just 1 second, please. Thank you. I'll go ahead and open the evidentiary hearing. We'd ask that anyone from the public that wishes to provide competent, substantial information to this, please come forward. When you come forward, just state your name and your address. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rodrigo Floriano. I live on 636 Brunswick, so it's the corner lot across the street. And I'd just like to raise a concern about privacy. When we purchased the place, I lived there with my wife and daughter. When we purchased the place, it was clear to us that that area would be unbuildable. So that was a privacy thing. We have a fence in our backyard. Any construction moving towards our direction or even on that location would have a clear sight into our backyard. and somewhat into our master bedroom and our bathroom. There are 2 windows on the top. Yeah, this is it. I just would raise the concern that anything built there above ground level would invade our backyard privacy.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? While we're in the public, does the city or the owner applicant like to include anything in this part? All right, we'll go ahead and close the evidentiary hearing and then move forward. Is there anything on behalf of the city in rebuttal?
I believe that I failed to enter the case summary and the attachments into the record. And I will just note on the attachment that is the recorded plat, it references this property as Lot B1 for future development. Typically, if something is required to be set aside as open space, it would be labeled as such on a recorded plat.
All right. All right, is anything from Mr. Tripoli, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just to reiterate that building closer to the backside will have less of an impact on neighbors, and I think it'd be better for everybody involved if you know, the house is set back further. The further we can get back off of Peacock, the less it'll have any kind of view on any of the houses there, including mine. So I think it's a win for everybody.
All right, thank you, sir. Does anybody have any questions of the owner or the city? Yes, sir.
The graphic that we have in front of us right now, does the UMX go behind the pink area right there, between the parcel and the railroad track?
Yes, sir. On the western side of the map, to the rear of the subject property is zoned urban mixed use.
Does anybody else have any questions? We can move forward to close out and see if any deliberation on how to move forward on this. Anyone's thoughts?
I would normally be against it, but since it's backing up to the railroad, and there's not going to be neighbors back behind him at any point, I'm more inclined to do it. I know that's a pretty big variance as far as the 10-foot setback goes, but I mean, there will never be, as far as I can understand, or as far as I understand, there won't ever be neighbors behind him that it would impact, and he's trying to do it to help the neighbors in front of him, because the lot's going to be built on regardless. And if he's able to push it back, you know, closer to that back property line, I'm okay with it.
Anybody else?
I mean, it seems like it meets the findings of fact. I mean, there would be hardship because the lot is peculiar, so it seems like it fits within the findings of fact.
Anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance request for the rear setback on the, what's the address?
634 Peacock Lane.
Okay, 634 Peacock Lane from 15 feet to 5 feet for the rear setback.
All right, there's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, it's been seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. That was our last item of the day. One other item before we adjourn. For the next October, is it 17th? 19th meeting, I will be out of town, and I'm trying to see if we will have enough people, because our goal is not have a quorum. Patrick, would you be available to run the meeting that week? All right. And with the number of alternates, I just wanted to make sure I give you enough advance notice. I can make changes, but it involves my wife taking off work to come take care of something. So I just trying to plan ahead. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, is there anything else for?
Yes, sir.
City?
I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce you to our new associate planner, Bentley Ernest.
Oh,
She's joining us from Charlotte, North Carolina, and she will be an associate planner in the zoning division. So you'll see her smiling face up here presenting case summaries in no time.
Great. Hey,
Welcome.
yeah. Is anything else before we adjourn? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.